Hey everyone, welcome back to video number 2. In this video, I'm going to be quickly adding the styles from the design, and we'll start moving forward in the future videos in adding the functionality. And so just like the previous video, we're going to use our designs and just look at it and see what we need to build out. So let's zoom in on this guy, which has the most content, and narrow down sketch a little bit so I can also use the code editor. Let's narrow this down. Perfect. And firstly, we need to look at our colors and add those as CSS Custom Properties inside here. So let's just do that. We're going to create a root selector and call this, or declare the property of color dash primary. And let's comment this out for now and copy this guy. Oops. And let's look at our text color, which is this guy. It's just 333. It's color dash text. Perfect. And we need this light gray color as well. Dash, let's call it secondary. And let's move this up a little bit. Perfect. And then we need our font sizes. So we have 20 and 14 and 20 again. What about the buttons? We have 20. Perfect. Okay. So let's do a font size reg. And let's give this 1.25. And font size small. Let's give this 0.875. And this is assuming that our root font size is 16 pixels. And then when we multiply 1.125 with 16, we'll get 20. And then same with 0.875, we should get 14. And let's update that in our body. So in here, we're going to give this a font size of 16 pixels. Perfect. And let's take a look. Okay, cool. And one thing we also need to do is start spacing this out. So what we're going to do here is actually just turn on DevTools. And I did that by pressing Command-Alt-I. And then you can also just inspect element. I'll go in here and look for DevTools. But the quickest way is just Command-Option-I. So once we're in here, we're just going to press toggle device toolbar. And iPhone 6 looks good for now. Perfect. So let's go into our body. Actually, no, not our body. Let's go into let's take a look at our markup again. Let's go into the outermost div called app. And let's give this a padding to rem. Perfect. So now we should be seeing changes again. And the reason you didn't see the font updates was I actually wasn't running yarn. So all you need to do if you cancel it out is run yarn start again. So we have a little bit more padding in here. And what we can start now doing is making sure that the buttons work and so forth. So let's go into design again. They're fairly straightforward. We have buttons with about, let's go into our buttons. We have a button about 12 pixels top and bottom padding. And then it's just centered. Perfect. So let's do that. Font size will be 1. Oh, sorry, the font size here will be variable of font size regular. And we don't need a line height at all on these. And we need a padding of 0.25 rems. And let's give this a 1.5, double the horizontal padding. And let's look at our design again to make sure that we have the color right. Or sorry, we have the styles right. So I'm seeing a border radius here as well. Let's do that border radius of 0.25 rem, or we can actually do 4 pixels as well, because the whole point of rem, besides easier to see and read units, is scaling. So if someone were to go in here and they wanted to scale up and down your site, they should be able to do so. Okay, cool. So now we're starting to see that the buttons have some sort of volume to them. Now let's style the button container. And again, we can actually go in here and hit this guy right here, which is the split editor, and easily be able to see what's going on. And then we're gonna press Command B and get rid of this sidebar because we don't really need that right now. So let's take a look at the button container. Yep, it's called button container. And let's give it a display grid. And here we're going to give it grid dash gap of 1 rem. And that's it. And we need to be able to change this later on a larger media size or screen size, and we'll address the media queries in a sec. But let's just start laying down the buttons here, or the button styles. And in here, this is going to be reset amount. Perfect. And we need our buttons to be display block and have a margin 0 of auto. It's perfect. And then we need width of 100%. Perfect. This is looking good. And we should probably style our image as well. So, or our logo, let's just call this strip. And give it a class name of logo. Oh, we forgot to close quotes. Perfect. And here we're going to give logo display block and margin 2 rems top and bottom, and auto on left and right. Looking good. Let's give it 1. See how that looks. Yeah, 1 looks good. And let's give our button container and a margin of 2 up and down and 0 left and right. That's looking good too. Perfect. So now let's start addressing this success state. And more importantly, let's start looking at the overall layout. Now, there are a lot of different types of phones and screen sizes out there. And regardless of phone and screen size, I want this reset amount and disclaimer to be near the bottom of the screen. And I want the congrats state to kind of be around the center, so there's some breathing room between the reset area and the buttons. So the way we can do that is by using Flexbox. Now we want our app to essentially be the container of this. So what we're going to do is we display flex, and we're going to give it a flex direction of column. And then we need our align items, which is going to be the left and right side aligns to be stretched out. And we need everything to start at the top. So flex content will be flex start. Perfect. And just to see what's going on, let's give it a background for now of pink. Perfect. So this shows us we need a height of, let's try 100%. If that works, we're good. If not, we want to do 100 viewport unit heights. Perfect. That's looking good. And what we can do now is in the reset container, we can just give it a margin top of auto. And that should be working. Why is that not working? Play. See what happens when you do flex end. That's working. So the reason it doesn't seem to be working is we forgot to close button container up here. Actually, we rather enveloped everything inside button container. So let's just move that up here. And that should work now. And we have our message container right here, and then our total count and reset container underneath that. And then what's wrapping that is the div. And you'll see that it's actually larger than 100 viewport. And what we need to do here is go to um, index.css. And in here, we need to add a box sizing of border box. So we're going to do a universal selector, and that's going to select every element in our documents. And we're going to do box sizing of border box. And you'll see now it fits perfectly. And this is exactly what we're looking for. So let's close index.css and start addressing the, first of all, let's also get rid of this bank. White's looking good. And let's start addressing the colors of the button. So let's go back to the buttons and let's start addressing the colors of the main button. So we're going to do color primary, and we're going to do background of none. We're going to do, give it a box shadow instead of a border of 0, 0, 0 and 2 pixels, and give it a color of color primary. See how that looks? Perfect. Let's also do the same thing for the color of the text. We're going to do color, variable, color primary. Perfect. And what I want to do now is also kind of fatten up the font weight. So let's say 500, see how that looks. Let's go to the design and see what we did there. And it's medium. Yeah, I'd say that's about 500. Let's try 600 just in case. Yeah, 600 is looking much better. Perfect. So what I want to do now is give this a hover state. So before we give it a hover state, we want to give it a transition so it's nice and smooth. And perhaps we should actually do this for the button selector itself. Let's give it 0.15, ease in, out. Perfect. And we're going to give the primary button primary hover state. That's also going to be its focus state. And what we want to do here is get rid of the box shadow. In up here, we should actually make this box shadow an inset. So it lives inside the button, not outside. And box shadow of none. And let's give it a background of our color primary, and then make our color of the text white. See how that looks? Perfect. Let's get rid of the media toolbar thing so it doesn't emulate a phone anymore, so we can see it on a desktop. This is looking really good. What we want to do lastly is make sure that we see the pointer cursor so it looks clickable. Perfect. And let's do something similar here. So we have our amounts, reset, and let's give this a background of our secondary color secondary. That's looking good too. And what we want to go in here, do is reset dash button. What we can do now is start to style this reset button. So we have a reset container and then a reset dash button. We'll have just a margin bottom of 1 rem, just to give it some spacing, some padding. Oh, we have reset button, not rest button. Perfect. And then we want to do, what we're going to do is, instead of calling this small, we don't really have another small class. Let's call it reset dash disclaimer. Perfect. And in our reset disclaimer, we're going to give it a font size small, And then we're going to center up the text. See how that looks. Looking really good. Let's emulate a phone again. I'm not liking how tight the padding, tight the line height is. So let's just go to our index CSS and go to line height, do a universal selector 1.2 or 1.5, and that looks much, much better. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have everything, let's go into our buttons again. Make sure that there's no border affecting the styles at all. That looks much better. Cool. And what we want to do now is style our congrats message or our success message. So let's do that. Again, let's take a look at our design. We have a much larger thing. And then one thing we actually forgot is our total count right here. Let's go here. We have our total count. So what we actually needed to do is give this total count a margin top dash count, margin top of auto. So we have that right there. And what we actually want to do is also give it a left right of auto and a bottom of 1 rem. Now that looks much better. Cool. And so now we can start to edit our success message. So let's go in here. We have our message container. And in here, we are going to give it a font size of reg. And what we're going to do now is center this guy up and go back and see it needs to be saved. 65 is, let's see how big that is, 32. Okay, cool. So we want the success amount here, this container. We have, let's just call this message amount just so it matches the rest. So message dash amount is going to be font size of 2 rems and font weight of about 800. And the color is going to be our primary color. Let's see how that looks. Perfect. Okay. Let's go back to your design. Congrats, you saved also this week. Okay. So what we can do here now is give this a little bit of padding so it collapses into 2 lines. Perfect. Now it's looking really solid. What we're going to do now is give this message container some spacing top and bottom. So let's give it 2 rem. Let's give it like 10 vertical height up and down and 0 left and right. See how that looks. Looks much better. We can drop that down to like 8. Actually like 6. Okay, 6 looks much better. Again, this is very subjective. So I'm liking how this looks. So let's start looking at how it should look on, say, a desktop screen size. So this looks like a stretched out app from the early iPad days. So this is definitely something we don't want. So let's simply start styling it. So what we can do now is, so now we can start adding media queries and address all the styles and make sure they respond to a larger screen size. So right away we can see an issue where the buttons are way too wide for how big the screen is. So let's go into our buttons and let's just do media, screen, and min dash width. Let's say about 560 pixels. And in here, we're going to make sure our buttons width say 20 rem. Perfect. And what we can actually do is make sure that we have this regardless of screen size. But what we can do in our media query is go up to here and let's go up to button container and give this guy a grid template of columns of FR1FR. Make sure that the buttons are next to each other. And let's actually move or get rid of the max width in our buttons and add the max width in the button container. Let's say 40 rems. Looks much better. And give this margin, turn it from 0 to auto. And looks good. And let's give it a width of 100%. Perfect. So let's see how that looks when it's collapsed. Ooh, nice. Okay, perfect. That's exactly what we need. Now let's go to our reset amount. Now this is far too low for a desktop size screen. We need this a little bit higher, so around here. So what we can do is, again, on the same screen size, let's start going to the total count again. And at this screen size, we're going to go to total count, change the margin to about 4 rem and auto. See how that looks? It's much better. And we can actually change this to 2 rems, so 4. See how that looks? Much better. Okay, cool. And what we're going to do now is go to our reset button, give this a max width, and give them a max width of about 20 rems. It's good. And we can actually give reset container a max width, just so it also includes the disclaimer underneath. Perfect. And again, margin of 0 auto. Looking much better. Perfect. So now let's make sure that this really pops out on a larger screen size. And how we're going to do that is we go to, we again use the media query and go to message container. And we just update the font size a little bit. Font size. And instead of large, let's just use extra large. Oh, let's go up here. Regular 2.5, and let's call this actually large because we don't have large yet. So font size. Now we need to make sure we select a selector. Message amount, not message amount. Let's do message. I believe it's called message. Oh, let's just do message container font size of font size large. Okay, looks much nicer. I think we can go a little bit higher. Let's go 375. 5. Let's do 75. Ooh, yeah, 75 looks much better. So 1.75. And let's also thicken up the font a little bit. So font weight, 600. Let's try 500. Yeah, 600 works. Perfect. Cool. One last thing we want to do is style the regular button. So let's go to our button. And again, just do hover, button focus. And first thing, we're going to remove the outline. And we're actually going to do this for the regular one too. And next, we are going to just darken this up a little bit. So we're going to do background. Actually, let's we should, darken this up a little bit. So we're using 333 to 222. And see how that looks. Actually, that's way too dark. So let's go to 333 again and see how we can darken this up. From here, we can go darker. Perfect. Okay, now it looks good. Perfect. And there you have it. There's how you style the app. In the next video, I'm going to be showing you how to implement the functionality so we can actually start using this as a counter. And we're going to be doing the next video in local React state and nothing more. So you'll be able to learn how to do this using just React.